Hey, Brewers listeners, we are here in amazing Henniker, New Hampshire, and you might be saying to yourself, well, we already heard an episode with Henniker Brewing Company.
But wait,
there's more. This episode's actually really cool. We're excited for this one because last weekend or 2 weekends ago, we were in Connecticut celebrating Connecticut beer at their Connecticut Brewers Festival.
Yeah, and before that, we talked to Phil.
Phil, who is your counterpart, I guess, right? Like, and we're going to get into that, all of that stuff. But I like that episode a lot because we talked about all the great beer that's in Connecticut. And it's easy for somebody who's like the spokesperson, for lack of a better term, of the beer to be like, yeah, Connecticut beer fucking rules.
It's the best.
The state that we're talking about, obviously we're in Henniker, New Hampshire. So no surprise, we're talking about
New Hampshire beer.
New Hampshire beer. I think Ryan, Erica, and myself have been saying for a while that New Hampshire is a underrepresented state. And I know we said that for Connecticut too, but we are more here in the Connecticut area, the New Hampshire area, to see, all the great beer that's coming out of this state.
Yeah.
And it is underrepresented.
Yeah.
That sucks because there's a lot of good beer coming out of here. But we're here with CJ.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
CJ, remind us of your role, because I know that, is it executive?
Yeah. Some of the states, we have different titles.
Yeah.
So I'm the executive director.
Okay, executive director. Yeah. I just didn't want to be like, I don't know.
Supreme officer. Yeah.
President of all.
My understanding of that role is not just like a granular role. There's a lot of things you do. So we're going to get into that. But we always start our podcast just by asking our guests, what did you drink this weekend? So what did you drink?
What did I drink this weekend? I went to a New Hampshire brewery and I drank some Schwartz beer.
Oh,
delicious.
There might be one in the cooler over there.
Ooh. Oh, okay. We'll talk about that. You can't list everything I drank this weekend because we drank a lot. Yeah, we drank a lot.
So many delicious beers.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was good. I had Mai Tai. I had a Mai Tai at my house. That's on Sunday. That was the extent of my remembering.
Fun.
It was great. I don't know. I've been into Mai Tais lately. I need tiki glasses.
I have a good friend who collects them.
Oh, really?
Yep. He's got a whole glass case filled with tiki glasses.
All right. Well, we're going to have to talk about that too.
Yeah. I'll give you his number.
Very cool. Noted. Yeah. Erica, what did you drink?
Yeah, just
Same
all
thing?
the beer.
Yeah.
We went to the Connecticut Beer Fest because these things are timed differently. So we just drank a ton of beer at that fest.
Yeah. I tried to run 5 miles after that. And I threw a lot up.
Any standouts from the fest you remember?
Yeah, it's going to sound like a cop-out, but Alvarium. I know I've posted a lot about Alvarium.
I was going to say something. They had such a great breakfast.
That sour breakfast, yeah.
That was insane. It was literally like maple sausage breakfast, but in a sour. And it actually was enjoyable.
It worked.
I know. Ryan's face is what I thought my reaction was going to be, but nope, that was great, actually. It was really good.
Yeah, and for a brewery to do those hypey quote
but
hype,
they do them
hypey
so
thing,
well.
they do them well, yeah.
And it's all right.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, cool. Yeah, exactly. Ryan, what'd you drink?
I had nothing at home this weekend.
Nothing at home?
No, but Friday I did go to Whim.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
Had
Haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, I had some beers over there. I had a little lunch. It was good.
A little lunchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little lunchy poo.
Ooh.
Yes. I am excited though. Nicer weather coming out, and we're gonna get a lot of those
patio
times, and we're gonna get what's it called? A Sacred Cod.
Food trucks?
Food trucks, yeah, food trucks. I don't know why I couldn't think of that.
That's a difficult one.
Food trucks, yeah, I'm excited.
The trucks that have food.
Yes.
Yeah, those things, that 4 wheels and food,
He would have gotten there eventually.
Yeah. But excited for that. It's just spring's such a grech season for beer.
Indeed.
Not as good as fall, in my opinion, but
wow,
it's cool.
Bold statement.
Oh, come on, the fall beers are so good. That's my opinion.
He's going for fest beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so CJ, your role, executive director. You drink a lot of beer in the state, I'm sure.
I do. And out of state and everywhere.
And out of state,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But how does someone get involved in this position? How did you fall into this position?
Well, my story was interesting because I worked in 2 different nonprofit areas before I came here. And then before that, I actually worked in the outdoor recreation spot. So I was a product manager for a local outdoor retailer.
Okay.
And I basically designed outerwear and apparel and all kinds of fun stuff that you use to do adventures outside. And most of those things would end with a beer.
Oh, yeah.
So I took about a year and a half off and I traveled after I left that job. And what I noticed was that I was stopping at a brewery every state. It was like the place to go. And it was just a familiar place that you could walk into, have great conversations with people. And I was like, this is pretty similar to the outdoor space, the sector, as far as the people, the culture, that kind of thing. And when I started with the NHBA, I was approached as they did not have an executive director at that time.
And NHBA, for our listeners who don't know, New Hampshire Brewers Association.
Yep.
So it's not a guild.
No, it's not a guild. And
I just want to make sure,
we were the Granite State Brewers Association a few years ago. And then we decided not everybody knows what the Granite State is.
Yeah.
But you should. But the old man fell, so
rip.
Yeah.
So we swapped it over to New Hampshire, and so when I started, that was one of the first things I said. How do we raise awareness of our brand as what we do, the mission of what we do? And when I was interviewed, they didn't have an executive director, and I was basically asked, hey, do you want to give us a shot? Like, just start part-time and we might pay you in beer, or it could work out.
Yeah, right.
And so I said, sure, why not?
Did you find a job in like the higher section in a newspaper, or
no?
How did that even come to you?
Erica, what year is it? 98,
right?
Like,
I had the morning newspaper out, and I was like,
Times, if you will.
I was actually approached by one of the brewery owners at the time, and he was one of my friends, and he sat me down and he's like, hey, I know you're not in the industry, but you know a lot about beer. You're an experienced person. You work for nonprofits. You're pretty personable and everybody likes you. I was like, I'm a people person.
Yeah.
And so he sat me down and he said, hey, would you be interested in this job and whatnot? And so we finally get to the end of the conversation. He's like, that was kind of your interview. And I'm like,
oh cool.
You nailed it.
So my follow-up interview, I was actually at a brewery in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, cool.
When I got the phone call, and I was like, sure. Okay, let's have a conversation about beer. And that was actually one of our former vice presidents of the board who was at Smutty Nose, and he was wonderful. But and so after that, I kind of took the leap and went, all right, I'm going to try this. And I haven't left yet.
How many years have you been in the role?
I started in 2016.
All right. So 2016, How many breweries were in New Hampshire when you started?
Well, there were 36.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's cute.
And now we're over 100.
That's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. That's really cool. 36 breweries. So you had like the big ones. You had Red Hook was probably still.
Yeah. And we had Red Hook, Smutty Nose, Stoneface, Henniker, a 603.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even 603 was small.
Yeah.
Now
like
it was
Throwback.
not there.
Throwback had just started at that point, and then Schilling had just basically taken off at that point too.
Yeah.
So you've seen the industry grow exponentially. Obviously, the industry as a whole, all 50 states worldwide, but New Hampshire especially. A lot of the times we hear New Hampshire being that in between state between either Maine and
oh no, like Phil thought he had it. Like no. We're like I'm just New
Vermont,
Hampshire and I'm just like the big hug. So I look at it, it's like Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts is like hug it out. Just get a big hug here.
Yeah.
Come visit New Hampshire.
Yes.
Why is New Hampshire not getting like the reputation it deserves right now? I mean,
well, there's a couple of factors. I think is that our state has a lot of small, really small. I'm talking like under 20 barrel breweries.
Yeah. Out of sales. Let's talk. One of the smallest ones. Yeah.
And so that puts us in this position of there's several of us, but a lot of us don't have the recognition out there yet because we're so small.
Yeah.
But the other factor is that some of our laws, as of even 5 years ago, were that you couldn't go to a tasting room and sit down and have a pint.
Wow. Even 5 years ago.
Yeah. So if you were to walk in here like 5 years ago, you could only get a flight of beer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was one per handle per stop. It was like, here's your 4 ounces. Here's your rations.
Yeah, your rations.
But it was also interesting because you didn't have to charge for them at that point. And so it was like, how were you going to make money? It's either you kind of had to go into distribution or you had to already be canning and then sell to go was that. And for smaller breweries, that's not really conducive when you're out of the gate. So,
so fighting for those on Capitol Hill, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
That's tough, right? Like, I mean, you don't have any like legal background, so like advocating and a lot of these breweries, I know you work with lobbyists and everything of that nature.
Yeah, we have a lobbyist, and then I'm the person that usually represents all of the industry when I go and testify at the State House, and then we also testify at the Capitol, and so we have conversations down there. We're headed down there. Actually, all the guilds will head down there at the end of June this year to fight for a bunch of different federal things. But yeah.
Do you think the laws were, quote unquote, antiquated just because of like alcohol being like a taboo subject, or are they just old rules that nobody, did nobody want to fix them?
That's one thing we're known for, is even like distribution to the state. It was kind of like everyone's like, these laws are ridiculous, and that was the reputation New Hampshire got. Unfortunately, was that, oh, I'm not even going to send the beer. So we never really like emerged as a craft beer state.
Yeah.
And not just like with the breweries in the state, but we didn't have a lot of craft beer that was coming into the state. So it couldn't really grow the segment.
Just didn't drink craft.
It seems like it's still like that to a certain extent, though. I mean, when I go to, I live right over the border. So it's sometimes my closest liquor store, Packy. I know it's not a liquor store. I mean, it is a liquor store, but I mean, you can't get beer there. But there's not a ton of Massachusetts breweries there. And a lot of people are like, well, that's because New Hampshire cares only about New Hampshire. That's not the case.
No.
I mean, yes, it is, like, to a certain extent, but
I'm going to say I care.
Of course.
But I mean, we just had an instance where one of a brewery from out of state came into the state, and everyone kind of scratched their head and said, how is that possible? Because they're self-destroying to our state. And I was like, well, they figured out the law does say that you can do that. It's just that brewery has to take that onus on themselves to do that. So they have to build in that infrastructure for themselves and have the bandwidth to do it. And
that is a hassle, though, self-distributing to a whole other state that you're not even in physically.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you almost have to have your own.
And you have to do this weird thing where you have to notify the state 48 hours in advance of you coming into the state.
Hey, I'm going to bring beer there Friday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like a federal offense, right? To like.
Right. Wow. All right.
So, I mean, we're at over 100 breweries right now. Did you see a slowdown with COVID, with like growth of breweries, or?
Not really. I mean, actually 2020, definitely there was a lag, but it was more no one could physically open.
Right.
Yeah.
We had one brewery that actually their grand opening was planned for March 16th.
We had a few of those.
So it was like the big, oh, sorry. But since then he's open. He's doing great. He's actually looking at a second location right now. And this year we've seen kind of like the tail end of 2021, we saw an uptick in breweries in planning. And right now we're working with about a dozen that are in planning right now. So
now you mentioned you're working with these breweries. So New Hampshire and Massachusetts and Connecticut, so who we talk to, they all say, we're working with these breweries. What does that actually mean?
So I do anything from I answer questions about what license type should I get? How do I apply for it? Where do I get financing? Who should I get for brewing equipment? What size brew house should I get? I need to treat wastewater like.
And you never worked in the industry.
No.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Like, you know all this stuff though. Like you learned it.
It's a double-edged sword, because sometimes you're like, you could Google it.
Yeah, right.
But you don't want to say that because they are members and you want to be as helpful as possible. But it's definitely, I've noticed that sometimes I will start talking and I'm like, you should know more than
right.
You should definitely know.
Be answering this question.
Right. So, but in any given day, it ranges from like, hey, I don't understand. My label didn't get approved. Why didn't it get approved? To talking about the law, to then talking about, okay, what event are you doing? This is how you use hashtag. This is how you use all of those things for social media. And then it starts like I have to plan major events. So it's also trying to get the breweries involved in that and understanding like, here's why we do these major events. It's because we work for you and we want to promote you, but we also have to have a livelihood to do that. Yeah. So
when do you sleep?
Occasionally every 3 hours throughout the night, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I need to do this.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You are answering all of these questions. You are representing the state in local legislation and then
federal,
federal, right? It's one person.
One person.
And it's one person in Connecticut, and it's one person in Massachusetts. Maine, it's two people, or is it one?
It's just one right now.
It's one in Maine. It was two,
Yeah. We would have been too, but I was supposed to hire my second person March 2020.
Didn't happen.
Definitely had that conversation though. It was one of those hard conversations to have when that first hit as a guild. We call ourselves guildies. Is I was in the position of I'm the biggest expense to this association. So do I step back and they all
a full-time position, right?
Right.
Like,
And my board looked at me like, if you leave, we are screwed.
Right. We're done.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what happened. Like we advocated to make it so that the breweries could stay open. So.
All right. So at this present moment, I want to talk about who's on the board, but we have to get a word from our sponsors. So take it away, sound guy Ryan.
Did you know that your favorite Massachusetts breweries use hops from a local family-owned hop farm right here in Massachusetts?
Our friends over at 4 Star Farms are there for you whether you're a commercial brewery or a small batch home brewer.
Make sure to head over to their website today and get your hands on some of the best and freshest hops available locally. Cheers.
At our local homebrew shop, Beer and Wine Hobby, you can get everything you need to make beer, wine, cider, cheese, and more. Not sure where to start? They have knowledgeable staff there to help. Beer and Wine Hobby is family-owned and located in Danvers, Massachusetts. Visit their website, beer-wine.com, and use our promo code BREWROOTS for 10% off your online order today.
Shirts on Tap is the box subscription service for craft beer lovers. Each month, Shirts on Tap partners up with 7 different breweries from across the country and collaborates on a sweet custom shirt design. We've been teamed up with Shirts on Tap since the inception of the podcast and are proud to announce a new promo code for all of our listeners. To get your first shirt for $5 off, go to the link in our description below and use the promo code. And remember, drink better beer, wear better shirts.
All right, so this present time, this is, April 2022. Who is on the board?
So our board president right now is Kirsten from Tuckerman.
Cool.
And then our vice president is Jen, and she is from One Love. I don't know if you know them. They're in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I gave her a new title because I was like, I don't really like secretary. So I was like, you're an executive administrator.
Yes. Ooh, I like that
she was
term.
like, ooh, I'm fancy now. And that's actually Erica from Post and Beam. And then our treasurer is actually Dave from Twin Barns.
Awesome.
Amazing that you have a majority of women on the board.
Yeah.
I think that's
So
really
this
cool.
is, and then we have five other seats, and that includes Smutty Nose, which is Judy, and then Steve from Elm City.
Yep.
And then we have Andy Day from Daydreaming, and then Bob from Whim.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Bob's great.
And then we also have Jason from Vulgar. So we had almost more than half of the board turned over this year. So it's definitely an interesting turn because one, we gained a lot more women on the board, but we also we completely shifted gears as most of those breweries are under 500 barrels.
Yeah, I was just about to
So
say,
it's like they're all kind of smaller breweries at that point. Granted, Tuckerman's one of the bigger ones, but it gives a different perspective. And what I've noticed is they're very engaging and they want to help as much as possible. So it's great to see smaller breweries take a bigger stance in having an impact on their community.
Well, I think the smaller breweries are the ones who have the most to lose, right? Like 603 has already figured out the game. They're in every friggin' market basket in the state. Smutty Nose, they're distributed in all of New England. So like those ones, they don't have to figure out how to get distribution. They have to, fight for shelf space. But like, we talk about like SARS Brewery, right? Like that guy's not represented. He's got to be represented, too. Like
that was one of the conversations I actually had with Woodman's the other day. We had our first quarter meeting of the year, and it was the largest gathering we've had of members ever for the association.
That's awesome.
So it was so awesome to see because there was over 80 members there.
Wow.
And I remember when I first started, I went to my first meeting. I was like super excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have all these members show up. And 13 people showed up. And I went,
This sucks.
And I felt terrible because it was at Woodstock Brewery and they had put out like this lavish display of food. And I was like, I guess I'm going to be really hungry for the next week.
Now you know what it's like to be in a band.
Right.
So yeah, just to see the growth of it as a whole has been really awesome too. So
how do you grow it?
What's interesting is when I first started, it was I would go visit breweries and just sit down and be like, hey, I'm CJ. This is what I do. And it naturally kind of took its course there. And the last 2 years, what we've seen is an influx of people actually understanding what we do and actually approaching us about joining. So they're in the early stages of planning and now they're realizing, oh, I should be part of this so I can learn from the industry, but also gain the backing. And so when I had the conversation with Woodman's, she pulled me aside and said, you know, without the association, I would be completely in the dark. Like we're so small that we would be a blip, and how the impact of the association helps us have eyes and ears is amazing. So
then what do maybe some of the larger breweries, get out of that?
The larger breweries, so we are a unique model because a couple of years ago, we joined up with the New Hampshire Lodging and Restaurant Association. So why we did that is that we combined the buying power. So essentially it allowed us to offer workman's comp at a reduced rate and a trust for the brewery. So if you're a larger scale, you get a reduced rate. And then from music to even like insurance and all these different benefits, we are now able to offer the group. So they get the benefit of that association as well as our association, which also means they get the benefit of having that association because they deal with a lot of the HR and employment laws and all that stuff. So they have somebody at the State House advocating for just specifically that avenue. And also it helps that a lot of them are restaurants. So having that in their back pocket as well makes it the buying power of what they're getting with us is
even better. Yeah. That's awesome.
The winter months in New Hampshire are kind of like a tough one, right? I mean, the summer.
What do you mean? It was like 70 last week and now it's like 12.
I'm just talking about travel, right?
Yeah.
Would you say New Hampshire's still one of those states that's like more busy in the summer?
Summer, fall, definitely like foliage season here is a little nutty. But winter, we do have an it depends on the ski season, which is always interesting because it was the same thing when I was an outdoor retailer. It was like, I really hope it snows this year.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes because, I mean, most of the breweries in the North Country get infiltrated. Even here at Henniker, they
right at the pace of Pat's Peak, right?
Yep. So, and that's what New Hampshire's known for. That's one of the biggest industries in the state is actually the ski industry.
Really?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's the brewing industry in the next 5 years.
Hey, we beat out maple syrup.
Oh,
no,
really?
Yeah. Wow. Like 4 times the economic impact of maple syrup. People are like, what?
Well, you guys have been like the number one drinking state in like the country. Like,
you gotta be number one at something.
Yeah. It seems like when you go to a Henniker, or if you go to, Schilling's a bad example. If you go to Czar's Place, if you go to, these breweries, the local representation, like people have their local place that they go to. Why? I mean, in Massachusetts, I don't feel like that happens. Like
it's definitely, you'll see it more and more. Like every town has the local brewery. I think the brewery turned into the local bar.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, that's wonderful for us. But it does make it slightly difficult when you try to encourage some breweries to improve their quality of the liquid they're making. Yeah. And you kind of make those suggestions. And then some of the people that are diehard fans of that brewery go to another brewery and they're like, this is swill.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a rural thing. Because honestly, if you go to Western Mass, or even where I am, like Oak and Iron, like that is the watering hole of that area. That's where people go. But when you go into the city, people are going to the brewery every week.
Yeah, nobody has that brand loyalty.
No one has that brand loyalty.
I met Team Steve the other day.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Very cool.
I mean, of the 100 plus breweries that are in the state, how many are members of the guild?
We have 87.
That's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah. So last year was the first year we hit over 80% of the state. There's some that are so small that they don't have a tasting room. So they're kind of like, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I get that. But there's definitely more benefits than us. The problem I get is we're not just the beer trail.
Yeah.
And that's when I first started, that was like what the association did at that point. Cause it was kind of like, oh, we'll promote you. Kind of like the old days of festivals when everyone's like, oh, come do this festival. It's a big exposure for you.
Yeah.
Now you're like, you can't have a festival without my beer. I think that's the other way around.
Yeah. And I have to pay somebody to be there. And
Yep.
Perfect segue. The beer trail. You are the only app that I use. I do not even use my own states, and got me on it.
That's really interesting because my app is I run the whole thing. Like
it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not great. Like there's so many things that I would like to do to it, but I operate the back end of it, and I'm like, this is what I got.
Right.
Well, I think it's pretty good. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But, let's talk about it. What is the New Hampshire Beer Trail?
So the New Hampshire Beer Trail is a program where you basically visit breweries, you collect the stamps or QR codes. We still have diehard people that are like, no, I want the stamp.
It's adult Pokemon. Yeah, basically.
That's what I say too. And so then at the end, you redeem for prizes and stuff. And so we have stickers and T-shirts and hats that we give.
You might see our stickers in a box stand too.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
But that's a good way to encourage
people to visit other breweries.
Yeah, it definitely. So I get a little nerdy, I should say. My treasurer and I get nerdy about it. Is we've tried to kind of equate like, okay, the average person's going to come in and spend like $18 to $24 in your tasting room. Okay. And at least 100 people finish it a year.
Oh, wow.
So you do the math
that's
and you're
a
like,
huge amount.
And granted, we deem finished as 60. So, but still, that's still,
I mean, that's
still a decent
amount.
Yeah. And so when you do the math out, it's kind of like, well, you basically pay for your dues the first month.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's true.
But it was weird when we first started. It was like, oh, you're just a beer trail.
Yeah.
And talk about New Hampshire Beer Week.
Yeah.
Because that's...
So New Hampshire Beer Week starts April 7th.
Yes.
And it's every April. We try to put it...
Around the same time?
Yeah, well, we always try to do it part of National Beer Day.
Yeah.
Okay. So we always kind of look around, like, is that the day we're going to start? But then we also take in consideration Easter because we're like, Passover, like, ooh.
Yeah.
That's a good point too.
Yeah.
So it's a week before.
So it's usually the beginning of April. And we have several events planned around the state. There's still people popping up every day. I'm adding new events. We have we're doing a unique event at actually an Uno's this year. We're doing
fun.
Yeah. the Uno, one of the Unos in the state is like very beer nerd geeky, like loves everything about beer. And he does such a tremendous job promoting New Hampshire beer.
Yeah.
So I have to give him credit for that.
Which Uno is it?
It's the one in Tilton.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're doing something unique where we're kind of trying to get all the members to go because we're doing a fundraiser there. So we get part of the proceeds from them. We'll go to the NH BA. And then there's some tastings that are happening during that event too. And then we have smaller beer trails popping up around the state. So there's like the Route 16 beer trail where they're going to do raffle prizes and stuff if you complete the trail. And then there's a bunch of different beer releases. And it seems that most breweries tend to have anniversaries. They'll celebrate their anniversary that week.
Yeah.
So there's probably at least, 10 or 12 anniversary parties going on then too.
Yeah.
Just a place to be.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to get into some more stuff that happens with the New Hampshire Brewers Association.
Ooh.
But we have to keep the lights on at Brewers. So sponsor time. We love you, sponsors.
Are you a solo artist, band, podcaster, or anyone else who needs recording services?
Well, we got a place for you where your vision can become a reality.
Welcome to Small Pond Studios, built by hand with heart and sweat equity by musicians for musicians.
Go to smallpondstudios.io to reach out to get more information. And make sure you let them know that Brute sent you. Hey, Sound Guy Ryan here. Didn't know if you heard, but we're a part of the Hopped Up Network. There you'll find other informative podcasts about beer. So go ahead, follow them on social media, and visit them on their website, hoppedupnetwork.com, to learn more about the people, beer, and breweries from around the country. And until next time, thanks for listening. Cheers.
So what goes on at the festival?
So the festival, we have probably 50 to 60 New Hampshire breweries come down for the festival. It's only New Hampshire beer.
Nice.
Last year, well, I say last year when we all know what that means.
Yeah.
The last time
this happened.
we actually did a hop nosing as part of the festival.
Really? Yeah.
And then what we did is we had special beers that went along with that. So you could basically walk over and be like, this is this hop, go taste it. It's in that beer.
Oh, that's really cool.
So we try to,
Some education portion of it.
right. And that's based on the mission that I try to instill in all the brewers is like, we have to do education, not just to the brewers, but also to the consumer. Because that's another factor that increases the awareness of New Hampshire beer is if more people in our state are educated on beer, then hopefully it'll raise
They'd
all the boats.
appreciate it more. And
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I always preach that your staff need to be educated on the beer. If they're not, then how are they getting interest from people?
Yeah.
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 A lot of times your front of house staff is the face of your brand.
Yeah.
We have one brewery in the state that all of their servers are like Cicerone servers.
I think
They're
that's
like,
huge.
Yeah.
It's super
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
I think.
I know a lot of people like
Don't do
poo Cicerone.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's what? It's better than nothing. Come
Yeah,
on. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a big way to bring in, like, I was going to ask, like, how do you bring in money? Like, how do
Yeah,
you, like,
so-
to do all this stuff? You don't work for free.
No. And so that festival is one of our larger ones. And then the conference is the other one that we do. And then we have we're debating to do another Keep New Hampshire Brewing beer trail this year, which was a special IPA release. And so last year we had 27 breweries.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
So we're looking to do the same thing kind of the summer timeframe after the festival, either try to incorporate it as the release at the festival and then do that again. And then we'll have pint days again at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And how did that work, by the way? The whole, Keep New Hampshire Brewing beer release.
It worked really well. So it basically, they had to release their beer because we were mindful of everyone's production schedule.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
be like, okay, magic switch, everyone
doing it.
releases at the same
You have
time.
time now, right?
And so
I don't care what your tanks look like. Do it.
there are a few that I was like, come on, really?
Yeah.
But what we had worked with is we got 10 different hop varieties, and then we arranged for local malt to be used. And then we worked with White Lab yeast. And basically we got all the ingredients to be either discounted or donated. So it wasn't
That's
at
awesome.
a loss for the breweries to do it. And then we took it one step further where we added the beer trail so that you had the chance to win like prizes from all the breweries that were
Right.
involved. So we got a big swag bag, sent it out to people. And it basically started in July and went through September. So it gave you time to go around
Tons
to
of
try.
time. Yeah.
That was the other thing is if we
Yeah.
released them all at the same time,
You got a week.
have fun. All 27.
Yeah. No, but that's huge. I feel like more states should do things like that. Yeah.
And one thing that I tried to do different because I kind of saw what other states had done and I was mindful of, okay, if this goes out into distribution, you can't all have the same label because you're going to walk up to that and be like, this is a sea of the same can.
Yeah.
So we allowed the breweries to be like, here's the 4 elements you have to feature on the can, one being the icon logo.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, you can do what you want with the rest of it.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Cool.
And then the conference.
Yep, the conference. So that's part of the continuation of the education mission of the association. So that we do 16 educational sessions, both technical brewing and then business and kind of like hospitality related.
Oh, that's perfect. Because I think that is hospitality. We've talked about this with other breweries. Like hospitality is missing in a lot of breweries.
And that's and when I go to other conferences, it always seems to be like, here's the business of beer and here's the technical side of beer.
Yeah.
And I go, but you're missing the hospitality part.
Right.
it's good
so-
that you got someone in the first time, but how do you get them back in again?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I also do that because ours is open to the general public too.
Oh,
I
that's
try to make
awesome.
it so like if you're a home brewer and you want to come.
Yeah.
But also if you work at a restaurant, you want to learn more about craft beer, you should come.
Yeah.
So we try to do things that cross over and I sit there and scrutinize the agenda for hours to be like, okay, if I'm a person and I do this job, are there 4 tracks that I get to go to?
Right.
Yeah.
That's all. I feel like
That's cool.
Yeah, planning a conference is like the worst job ever.
Oh,
The
It
hardest
sounds
job,
really
like-
fun,
yeah,
but also
like,
stressful. Like you're
It
just
is.
saying, like sitting there, like,
No.
would I go to all 4 of these? Like
You
just-
have no idea how stressful it was.
I
The last one we did, Ken Grossman called me at 11 o'clock at night and he's like, hey, CJ, my plane's delayed. And I was like, you're
What?
going
No,
on at
no, it's
9
not.
a.m. And I talked to him probably till 2 or 3 in the morning to finally get him. He landed in Portland, Maine. We got him in an Uber and I had to change the whole itinerary to be like, okay, he's now talking at lunch.
Oh my God.
So he rolls in, gets out of the car and
does it.
And my friend's like, hey, that's Ken Grossman. I was like, yeah, he needs to talk now. now. And so he goes in, kills it.
Yeah.
And he was in the state of New Hampshire for an hour and 43 minutes.
Oh my God.
I felt terrible. And then he got on the flight, go back to California.
Oh my God.
That is so terrible.
That was a stressful moment of like,
So
He's never coming back.
you don't get to plan, like, you know that the conference is going to happen every year, but what's an event that you would personally want to have every year, like a new event?
a new event, I would love to feature our newer breweries in the state. So I would love to do like freshman class. That would be huge. This year in particular, there's
A number of breweries, yeah.
right. The number of breweries keeps increasing, but even like this year, if we did it towards the tail end of this year, beginning of next year, there's 10 breweries in planning right now that are
That's
kind
a
of like,
decent amount.
right.
Yeah.
I think those events are great for people who are home brewers thinking of going pro, and like you can literally sit there and be like, pick people's brains who did it, because we oftentimes tell like the cooler side of a brewery. It's
The glamorous side.
It's packed wall to wall.
Oh, yeah.
We have this IPA, and it's like, yeah, we have to like talk to the TTB. We have to do all this stuff. Like it's
It's hard. And
it's hard,
oftentimes
yeah.
after so many years of running the business, you forget how hard it was to open and what like small things you had to do to get open. So it's cool to talk to them then in that moment.
So believe it or not, a lot of our listeners are drinkers, but they're also brewery owners and brewery staff and fans of breweries, whatever. How can people find out about the Brewers Association?
So you can go to our website, which is nhbrewers.org. You can also download the app, which is in the App Store. It's just New Hampshire Brewers.
Yep.
And then, of course, we have all the social media. We have a couple different ones. We have NH Beer Trail, and then we have NH Brewers. So you can find us under either of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I would encourage our listeners, if you are going to, Maine, or you're going to Vermont, like
Stop in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Hampshire.
take a quick stop. Find a brewery.
You can
there's
have
one
a full
on your
pint
way
now. You can
Yes.
have a full pint. That was one of the things we changed last year. Is every brewery can serve a pint now.
yeah. Oh, you know what? We're going to take 5 more minutes, because there's one thing that you are fighting for right now.
Yes.
In the State House, and can we just talk about that like real quick?
Yes. So this morning, we actually had a hearing, and it was in regard to, we just added last year, we were able to get it so that beverage manufacturers in our state can have a satellite tasting room. And what that essentially means, it's great from the sense of if you're small and you want your manufacturing in one spot, you can open up a tasting room downtown Main Street and be like, woo, look at me, I'm on Main Street making it. But also for the larger breweries, if they wanted a second location, like if someone's in Northern New Hampshire and they want a southern location, that's why we did it. But today's hearing was about, there was one little comma in the way that it was written, that if we removed the comma, it would basically strike the fact that you would have to have production on site at that second brewery. Because if you think about that someone would have to go through the TTB and all of that rigmarole to basically then
Have like this dumb little pilot system there just for show.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
we know the
There's
game.
a few of those.
Yeah,
Yes.
we know the game. Yeah.
Here's my mash paddle. It's a spoon.
Yeah. So that's huge.
Yeah.
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 And then like real quick, what are some of the big laws? I mean, the pint one that you changed
That you're
real
working
quick,
on.
but what are the other ones that you're working on?
The other ones we're working on right now is we're trying to also improve the label approval process for the state so that it goes much smoother, more can come in. Yeah. We're also working.
You guys sneak ones past the goalie sometimes. I feel like the state,
I
I'm
know.
like, come on, really? No, I know it's not your fault. I know.
I've sat in many hour-long conversations and said, you did this, but then you wouldn't do this one.
Yeah.
And then I get, don't talk about that, CJ.
Yeah. If you could change one law in New Hampshire, what would it be?
One law in New Hampshire.
Beer related. I mean, I'm sure there's.
Well, let me tell you.
Come on, give it all.
Beer related, it would be that actually what I would like to do is merge the nano license into the beverage manufacturer license.
Yeah.
And the reason I would do that is so that it was a tiered structure. So it would make the process seamless. So as you grew, you didn't have to change your license type or the infrastructure that was involved in that. It was just like a smooth transition. And that's actually what we tried to do 2 years ago. And they're like, whoa, that's way too much, CJ. You're asking
What
for
are
the
you
world.
doing?
Yeah.
It's like,
Can't do that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
so
yeah.
Keep going for that.
Yeah. Well, CJ, thank you so much for doing this today.
Sure.
It's a lot of fun. I think what New Hampshire's doing is awesome. I really
I think what you're doing is awesome.
Yeah, I think what you're
Well,
doing is
thank you.
awesome. Yeah.
Now you guys gotta come and do awesome stuff with us.
We will. Yeah, we will. You need to get some sleep. 3 hours a night's not enough. Coming from someone who doesn't sleep either, I get it. Yeah, but we'll try. You know,
I believe in you
We're gonna
both.
try. We're gonna try. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we got a couple episodes coming up in the next couple of weeks that are gonna be super awesome. So we want all our listeners to do that. But more importantly, go check out the New Hampshire Brewers Association. Download
them
the app.
a follow.
I know it's another app to download, but like delete Snapchat or Instagram.
Yeah.
Don't delete Instagram. Follow us
No,
on that.
yeah.
But, like delete Snapchat. Yeah.
Are we deleting TikTok yet?
No, we got so many. We got like 150 followers in 2 days. I was pretty pumped about that.
Whoa.
I know. I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on.
Algorithms.
Crazy. Yeah. Delete one of those dumb apps that you don't use, like a banking one. Money's fake. Whatever.
Crypto.
Yeah. NFTs. Whatever. This is not financial advice at all. So
Please
don't sue
don't.
us. And we'll catch you guys next week. Cheers.
Cheers.